Welcome to The Collective, where every conversation ignites a new perspective. Join us as we delve into the journeys of remarkable individuals, explore the art of growth, resilience, and the power of a shared mission as we strive to be better together. Hey everybody, welcome back to The Collective. We have another fantastic show for you planned for today, and I am stoked. We got Matt returning, we got Eric returning, we got Gordo returning. I am pumped, and while I am pumped, you should be too. Like the show, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, do all that good stuff, get your emails when we go live, which is of course Fridays for The Collective and Wednesdays for The Gold Mine. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments, anything, I'll put them up in the comment section. We can hit those throughout the show, and if you have not yet, make sure you are signed up for the newsletter. That is the reinforcement loop. That makes sure that you are in the loop with all the things Collective, as well as get your weekly brain candy set up for the week. Other than that, let's get some intros downrange, and then we can hit the topic throughout the show. Matt, you're on top. 10, 15 seconds. Who are you? Where you come from? All that good stuff.
Hey, Matt Barnett from Texas, run Bonetti Explosives, and I'm just here to join the ride and throw in what I can.
I love it. Eric, how about yourself?
Hey, Eric here from Washington State, police commander, been in the industry for 18 years, run Blue Grit Wellness, Blue Grit Radio, the podcast, and newsletter, trying to be a humble version of what the Collective's doing up in the true north.
I like it. I like it. Gordo, while you're opening up all the cans, what's going on the East Coast?
Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Gordo from All the Way. I have a small creative agency that specializes in wholesale apparel, art, all sorts of design. I have a documentary coming out this October. It's going to be premiered at the Canadian War Museum in Ottawa. I am still trying to raise money for that. So if you want to be a part of it, let me know, and I will put your money to use.
I like it. Sean, how's life out in the mountains?
Things are good. First of all, Matt, killing it on the home front with all of your videos. I love everything that you're putting out. It's so creative, and so maybe that's an aspect that we can talk about, personas and that creative side. Of course, Eric, you made a humble reference to, trying to kind of walk alongside of us up here north, trying to do all of the good things. But I got to disagree with what Eric's saying. Eric has been doing it before we ever started, and I feel like he's probably doing it better than we are. So we've got to pick up our pace in respect to what Eric's got going on. And to Gordo, I just want to say, keep your chin up, because I watched your video this morning, of course, and it's freaking tough, man. This is a tough battle space where, you pour your heart into something that is righteous, and it often feels like no one's picking up what you're putting down, but I'm definitely picking up what you're putting down. So I know there's a few of us that are, trying to lead the charge in respect to just trying to do it right. And you're right up there, right at the tip of the spear, buddy. So don't let it drag you down, because it always will. Just keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah, and especially right now, I mean, money's tight and the economy's not great and all the other things are going on, but you're doing good work, and it'll come around. It really will. I think people are going to dive in here, especially at the last possible second. That's usually when everybody starts to donate. It's not in the weeks prior. It's always in the last couple of days before anything starts off. So keep it up.
I have a lot of faith.
You'll get donations when it's a commercial success. At con.
Basically.
Then
it'll happen. Yeah. It was just like, it's one of those things that for using social media where it's like, I should, and I'm going to release the full 6-minute rant update for everyone to have. But I think it's important to show people like, hey, I'm a human being who's going through this, trying, you know what I mean? I shouldn't try to say change a system, because it's a big system of change. But if I can change one person, then that's where the money is, and it's working, and I know I'll get there. I think I'll skim by for this first one, and then as soon as people see the documentary, it'll be a flood for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'll definitely happen. How many cans are you going to open? It's fantastic. It feels like you're opening one every couple of seconds. Anyway, so let's get into the topic here. I want to hit on a couple of things, but right off the bat, the persona. I put this out to you guys earlier today. When you hear the term persona, what is it that clicks in your mind right off the bat? Matt, I'm going to hit you first. What do you think?
Well, the persona is what people throw out there as the fluff. I feel like what you want people to see versus what you really are. And the persona is everything from what you wear to how you carry yourself, what you say, how you react under pressure. But it's not always, it's like that outer shell versus what you have inside. And I think I got a lot of thoughts on it, because I think I think the gap between what you are and that shell of that persona, all your life, you need to be pulling that in, so that you don't have weak spots like in concrete and bubbles and things like that. You want to project as close to what you really are as possible. And of course, that's a challenge, because you're always learning about yourself, because I've never been 44 before. And so you're learning every day. And I think healthy reflection is really important for that.
I dig it. I had to sit down with my son at one point, and I tell him, like, hey man, you're the first kid I've ever had. So anything that we do, it's going to be the first time for me as well. Like, you may struggle, but I'm struggling too. I hear you. Eric, what was your first thoughts?
Yeah, man. Just to go off of that, we are the accumulation of everything we do. We're the accumulation of our past and every continuing moment, right? Like the banner, every moment, do your best every day. But to Matt's point, like, you're continually changing. It makes me think of, is it Heraclitus or Heraclitus, right? Like, the man never steps in the same river twice. So it's a different man, it's a different river. But how do we integrate that and make ourselves the best version continually? How do we learn from the lessons? And yeah, what you put out might not necessarily be you, but it also contributes to who you are continually. It makes me think of like IFS and parts work, which might get really muddy, as we sometimes do when we talk about the shadow, right? That's part of us too. What can we learn from that? How can we lean into that as well?
This could go in many different directions, and I am digging it already. Gordo, how about yourself? What do you got?
Man, awesome insight already. I think I would like to highlight that it's okay to have different personas, and that you can enable said persona in whatever situation you need to go in. And I think that is okay. What's not okay is the person underneath driving it, right? You put that mask on, you can still carry the same thread across all your different personas, but the same way I talk with you guys is going to be different from talking with the health minister, different from talking with the homies in the stack, talking different to a detainee, right? Or business. And I think it's especially with veterans, because they feel like they're boxed, or a lot of professions, you don't have to be boxed into what it is. And it's okay to put a different persona on, to be able to engage in different groups, to be able to achieve whatever you're trying to get after.
That's a great point, Sean. What do you got?
Well, I missed your initial question. Was it what are my thoughts on persona?
Yeah, basically, when you hear the word persona, what first clicks up?
Okay, check. So a couple of things. One is I've been through several personas. And so am I an accumulation of all of them simultaneously, or am I cherry picking the persona on an as-need basis in the moment that's directly in front of me? So kind of in theme with what Gordo just said, depends on who you're talking to. Are you talking to a minister, or are you talking to a detainee? It doesn't mean that you change your mask so dramatically that you're unrecognizable. I mean, there's still like that common thread of who you are at your central core, but I do believe that your personas can shift to some degree in order to facilitate the required outcome kind of efficiently, if you will, in the moment. That said, I just finished writing about this a few days ago. I didn't know this was going to be the topic, but one of the things that I did write, and I think it's really important for someone to let this sink into their peanut, and it's this. No matter how many roles you've had in your life, how many careers, how many tasks, we'll call it, I believe that it's our job to metabolize them into our system. Like whatever your job was that you were good or not good at, you have to like metabolize it into your system. You have to synthesize it. You have to, like calories, consume it, and then use that fuel to enhance the remainder of your life. So I like to think of it as metabolizing my experiences into a single persona that I can shift malleably on an as-need basis.
Bring them up when you need them, like just bring them to the forefront. I like that. Let's go around again. Matt, you got any thoughts on anything the boys have said?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about the different ones. I think when you're really busy and you're forward leaning and focused on accomplishing tasks, the whole persona thing becomes something that's in the back of your head. But it happens with the subconscious, for me anyway. I mean, that's all I can speak on. I don't try consciously to think a lot about myself, like how I come across to this guy or that person. I have goals that I'm trying to accomplish, and there are people along the way that, like you said, the minister versus the guy that is dropping the explosives off, let's say. I think subconsciously we try to meet people where they're at. And so, I don't want to present myself in a way that is going to be so alien to this person. And I think that's where you have to balance things, because you have to meet them on a level they understand, but you still have to be you. When we talk about it that in that way, I was also thinking about it as, a persona of, like, when you're an instructor of explosives, you definitely want to come across squared away and in charge and completely capable of everything you're about to do. You want to instill confidence in the people that you're about to instruct. And so that comes, though, from understanding the material inside and out, upside down and every which way, because you study it, you go over the plan the day before, and you're just simply stacking the parts out. And it's just really important that you present that level. Now, when the class is over and we talk about things that I don't understand so well, I want people to know the true me, which is I don't know everything. I'm not in charge of everything, but I know what I know, and that's what we're going to focus on to keep everybody safe. Some of my thoughts right there.
I dig that a lot. I like, we were talking about this just recently, in the fact that, like, when you teach something, you never really learn something as well as when you actually have to teach it, because you have to go into the roots of it and have to understand not only what it is that's happening, but how to then present it to other people. I'm digging this. Eric, you got any thoughts?
So that is true. That is true. You should, as a good instructor, do exactly what you just said, but that is not the case universally. So it's not a universal rule of thumb that if you're an instructor, you're going to be the mega. It's not true. But that is part of your persona. If you are a responsible instructor or a responsible human being handling explosives and you want to do it right, then you're going to understand that part of your internal makeup is to be squared away, is not only to pretend to be the poster boy in the moment, but actually freaking be it. And so, as an instructor, you can be many things. And one of those things is not squared away. But then again, that's part of your persona, perhaps.
That's a great point. I've had instructors that were horrible and didn't know their stuff and tried to portray themselves as knowing their stuff, but were wrong in a number of things. Eric, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I think everything that people are kind of riffing on is making me think about being effective. And we're talking about masks, or we're talking about how we alter our communication. And maybe one person, certain people might think that that's disingenuous to toggle what you say, how you say it, depending on who you're saying it to. But context varies, environment varies. Like, you got to know your audience, and that's what leadership is. I think that's what effective leadership is. It's not just hitting everything like a nail because you're a hammer that's not adaptable. But sometimes you can reach out and you can be the screwdriver. You can adapt. You can meld because people that I know that are effective parents, they have many kids. I have one, but they have to be mindful of what that kid's going through, what that kid's personality type is, what has worked in the past. They can't parent all the same way, and I have not seen good bosses, good leaders, boss or lead in all the same way. They're very attentive to the changing circumstances. So Whereas someone might say like, hey, they're a strong personality type. They talk to everyone the same way, no BS. I mean, I think that's BS because I will absolutely talk to my daughter differently than I talk to my coworker, differently than I talk to my wife, because they're not the same person. We don't have the same relationship.
I think not only that, you come at them with a different energy as well, right? Like the energy that I bring to my kids is very different than the energy I bring to my students on the mats or the people that I work with horses and stuff. It's an energy thing as well. Gordo, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think maybe it's actually like a little bit of legacy thinking that we actually need to change the way we speak to this person and that person because of these rules that were before. Like it's 2025. You can be whatever you want to be. And I found most recently, I sent an email and they didn't get back to me for 2 days. And it was like to the CEOs. Like I had a good warm introduction, but I went full Gordo on them. And at the end of it, I was like, do I want to send this like to them like this? And the ultimate decision was yes, because you know what? This is who I am. I may be crazy, I may be loud, I may be doing this stuff, but I am effective and I will get stuff done. So what I eventually pressed send, but they didn't respond for 2 days. And I hit up my friend who did the warm intro and I was like, dude, did I say something incorrect? And she was like, no, that was awesome email. And they responded the day after and I had a ton of support. So I just want to say that, like, although, yes, I use a different persona here and there, I'm starting to become more comfortable with just being like, F it. You know what? This is who I am. I'm getting shit done, whether you're coming along or not. So this is it. I don't know if I have that luxury. Sorry for swearing. I don't know if I have that luxury because I'm not famous, right? But is that in itself a mindset and like a chain to be like, oh, only famous people can act how they want to do and say what they want to say? So I don't know. I'm loving the conversation.
Interesting. I dig this quite a bit. And it goes into the general persona of, you know, can you do whatever you want in reality or can you not? Like there's a lot to this. Sean, what do you got?
Well, to answer your question, whether it was rhetorical or not, you can do anything you want. You can. You can be a total goof. You can be a total clown. And, you know, you can even get away with it. You can even enjoy it. But you know what it does do? It excludes a big chunk of the world. I'm not interested in clowns unless I'm going to the circus. And so what is interesting, though, I just had to quickly look it up. The phrase, the saying, it's from William Shakespeare, and it is, the world is a stage. The whole world is a stage. And so, in essence, we are the actors within our own play. And I'm, you know, this is just loose terms, of course, because I'm thinking about what Gordo just said. And he's right, to some degree, that you should be able to be the authentic actor on your own world stage. And if you're doing it right, you shouldn't have any concerns. It's when you're doing it wrong that you're going to have concerns. And there's the crux, man. Who knows when you're doing it right or wrong? You feel that you're doing it right, but then someone gives you feedback and says that you're doing it wrong. And who are they to evaluate the feedback? And so then you ask 10 friends, and they all say you're doing it right. And then one says you're doing it wrong. And so how do you adjust your life? Are you being pushed around by the various gusts of wind on social media that say that's right, that's wrong? Or are you staying to your true core, your true character? Because persona, which I looked up another definition of from the ancient Latin, it actually refers to the mask, but it's generally used to refer as a character played by an actor. And so if we're all actors playing a character on the stage of life, what are we trying to accomplish? We're all trying to accomplish our own little things, of course, but are we working with the cast on the stage that's surrounding us? Are we delivering to the audience, or are we delivering just for our own self? Are we delivering to the person on stage left, stage right, and the person who's behind the stage curtain? That's how I think. I mean, these are questions that make me consider this subject as interesting. And so I'm looking to deep dive into the subject to some degree while still like not understanding the topic, as it were. And I suppose that is the human condition.
That is the crux of the whole conversation. And so I have a question on this specifically. You said the world is a stage and we're all actors, but are we all actors? Because I read a thing online a little while ago, and it was saying that like 40% of the population doesn't have an internal monologue. They have no like general voice in their head speaking to themselves. My brother has a condition called aphasia. He can't picture things in his mind. Like he can't create an image in his own mind. He can bring up memories, thoughts of things that he's seen, but he can't make anything unique in his own head. And so I'm wondering, do you think that everyone wears a persona? Do you think that we all each have it? Or do you think it's unique to certain environments like military, policing, things where we have to interact with multiple pieces? What do you guys think? Eric, I'm going to come to you first. You look like you have an idea.
That's interesting. It makes me think of like autism spectrum, where certain folks don't really toggle their demeanor unless they're really coached to, and maybe they're capable or open to it. What you see is what you get, and there's kind of a beauty to that. Whereas we get in our heads and we may have this internal monologue, or how am I being received, and is this the right thing? I'm curious with Gordo. It's almost like you drafted this email. It sounds like your authentic self and presentation, and these are the things you want to get across, and it is you, like kind of unapologetically. You hit send, and then was the delay what caused this potential fear or this concern? Oh man, maybe I was not received the right way or the intended way, or what are the downstream effects? You hit up a friend or colleague that's like, no, you're good. But kind of to Sean's point, like if you just blast it to somebody else, do you hear like, oh, you're bad? And does that change the outcome for you? Kind of rhetorical, but also kind of curious what that felt like to you, because I think we all have these aspects of this thing, right? A phone call, you hear silence after you say something. You drop some truth on your friend, you hear silence. You're like, oh God, what have I done? Right? And maybe the gears are turning and they're like, yeah, man, thank you for saying, thanks for calling it out or calling it up. Conversely, email tone, right? You don't hear something for a bit. You're like, oh crap. And on and on.
What do you got, Gordo?
Yeah, that's exactly what it felt like. Just like, oh no. And yeah, what is wrong by today's standards? You know what I mean? Oh, I'm talking to a professional. So what does that even mean? They're educated. So that means I should run this through a AI program to make sure it's correct for someone at a high linguistic level, where it's just like, can we fix what the problem is here, please? So I don't know. It's like you brought up ACEs before, and I think that goes back into it as well, is that like, even though I was such a high performing individual in my job, and still am, I still have like a complex that I'm like not good enough for the things I've done. Even though I'm beside these people, I still feel like, oh, I need to be subservient or something like that. This conversation here, I'm like, it's like kind of where I'm at in life. I'm kind of breaking out of it because of the restraint from playing the game or going in the lines and trying to do everything. It's now that I'm realizing like, maybe I should just be myself and just be like, F it, dude. And I think I'll probably get more reception from people and money from like different groups that are aligned with me and not necessarily the thing I'm trying to fix. Whoa.
I dig it.
Damn.
What are you thinking?
Well, I was thinking about my social media manager. You know, back in the days when they started that thing, I like to talk and I have these funny ideas about things, or a perspective I think is kind of cool that I want to share. And they all told me to shut up. And they're like, nobody cares, because nobody cares who you are. And so they had this program set up of these sub 1 minute clips of showing some fun explosives. And of course it's me. So there's aspects of it that were me, but 90% of that cut is edited out. Like she never posts it. And sometimes it causes problems because it'll make something look technically incorrect. But if you could hear what I said, 30 seconds later, the whole video would make sense. But she doesn't know that, but she had a point. Both were true. She had a point. You're never going to get this following from people if you don't meet them where they're at and just give them that clickbait entertainment. But I think I was correct in that if you're not authentic and genuine in what you're doing, people can sense that too. And I don't remember who the entertainer was that said it. I would give credit, but I forgot who they were. They said, when you go on a stage to produce something, produce from your heart, produce what you are called to create. You know, where do these come from? These ideas to create something? I don't know. But when they come, be true to that and create it, and don't worry about the audience. And they said, you'll get a bigger audience from doing that than if you try to follow every whim of the audience. And I think that if you work on reducing that gap of the pretend versus who you really are, for me personally, get quieter, because you're wanting to observe more. You're not speaking on things that you're not 100% solid about. But when you do speak, you know what you're talking about, and people can tell. Like, you can really tell when people are speaking from experience and about things they really know. If you think about rocket fuel, the way rocket fuel is produced is it's poured into this mold in a liquid form, and it has to cure. But air bubbles will form inside of that, and you either vibrate it or you run it through a vacuum chamber a few times, and you get these bubbles out so that it's solid, so that once it starts burning, it burns uniformly through it. Well, if you have those bubbles, you're going to increase the surface area, and you run the risk of blowing the rocket up. It becomes extremely unstable. And so I think that if you know who you are, but what you're trying to do is follow the whim of others, you're creating bubbles that are going to ultimately create instability and possibly blow you up.
Bam. Nothing like philosophy and explosives mixed together. This is awesome. Sean, you got any thoughts?
So I'm no explosives guy, but I do know this, that playing off of what Matt just said, if you introduce too much cavitation in a sealed vessel, let's say it's got little bubbles in it, all of that cavitation might dissipate all of those little bubbles so that they're now quote unquote not visible, but they're still there. And so it's not just a matter of vibrating something. If the internet vibrates me so hard that I turn into the thing that it wants me to be, but it's through a process of hiding all of my positives and negatives within me so that I can't see it, they can't see it, and now I am what they want it to be. Well, it's just a matter of time until those bubbles reform and the cavitation, was for naught. And so I think that Matt's point is correct, and that, you have to be true to yourself, and hopefully, as you're working your way down the path of being authentic, you don't blow yourself up with rocket fuel. And so I want to say something that is, to me, apparent looking at this panel. We're all freaking quirky, boys. Every single one of us. We got the quirk, some quirkiness in us. And that's a good thing, in my opinion. My favorite people in the world are quirky people. And, Gordo is a prime example of that. He's right now figuring out how much quirk he's going to show to the world and how much he's going to contain. And that's an important ratio, by the way. You can't pop up on the radar on day 3 and start going all mega quirk. You can't be 110% quirk. You'll scare everyone, you know what I mean? Maybe even yourself when you watch it a couple years later. But I will endorse that if you've got some quirkiness in you, you got to let that stuff unfold a little bit. You got to let people see that, your special inherent qualities to some degree are your quirkiness. I love when Gordo delivers an authentic message. I know when he's in his authentic zone. I do. I've watched enough of him that I can see when he's not and when he is. And the fun part about that is that when he's in his quirky zone and he's doing his quirky thing, I know that he feels natural with it, but it will be unnatural to others who are observing it as they calibrate to quirky Gordo. And so that's just a matter of time. It'll take as long as it takes for people to resonate within that cavitation process to line up behind you, with you, or in front of you. Either way, it just takes time.
I got a really good question for you guys, and it's right on this. And then I'm going to ask the question, and then I'm going to explain it, and then I'll get your guys' answers. Who was the best Batman? Who was the best Superman? Who was your favorite Silver Surfer? Right? These are all different interpretations of a character, of an idea, of a persona. It's I like Michael Keaton. I think it was who's the best Bond, right? Sean Connery, right? This is each. It speaks to each of us in a certain way, and I wrote down here, Matt. You said something. It's the if you play to the audience, then you're going to get, in my mind, you're going to get like the George Clooney Batman from the 90s, which was horrible. But if you play to yourself, then you get like a real Batman to whoever that is for you. For me, it was Michael Keaton. It might be Adam West for Sean. It might be like whoever was that person. And so I want to ask you guys not only, who's your favorite Batman or who was your favorite Bond, but why was that your favorite? And how does that play into your own persona on the daily? I'm going to go with Sean on this one first.
Fair enough. I'll play this game. It's a fun game. Michael Keaton would not be my first choice. And I'll establish why. And it might sound like wrong to other people out there who don't know me, but I feel like Michael Keaton was a bit of a Pons. I mean, he was too polished. He was not Batman, in my opinion. You know what he was? He was a dude who likes getting gold statues up on stages. That's the kind of Batman that he was. Now, I'm sure he's a great guy, and I know he's a great actor, but he wasn't a great Batman, in my opinion. Much like Bond. Sean Connery, I think he's an amazing actor. I think he had his persona, the aura, maybe, more so than the persona that Sean Connery gave off. I love that guy, but he was not Bond to me. Bond is something that I established in my head a long time ago as a kid when I first started watching Bond. And Bond was gritty, ass-kickery, and took no nonsense. And though Sean Connery did, kind of exemplify that to some degree, it was too toned down. The era that Bond was shot in was a toned down era. But you throw in like, maybe Casino Royale. Now that was a gritty Bond. I mean, when he's sitting on that chair after Buddy is the villain of the day has cut out the chair center, slap Bond down with his jewels dangling in the chair, and the villain of the day has got that frickin' rope, and he's looking him in the Mark I eyeballs, and man, I'm sweating bullets watching it on the big screen, and then wham! And you know what Bond does? He does Bond the way I like it. He's got that, not maybe sneer, but he's got that, oh yeah, all right, we'll see. It's all going to get sorted out. That's what I love. And you can't put that into Michael Keaton. He doesn't have it. That's not who he is. He doesn't have that grit deep inside of him. But, some do, some don't. And there'll be people out there that love on Michael Keaton, but that's not me. I have a certain definition in my head, and that's relevant to this topic. If I have a definition of Gordo as being really straight-lined and really predictable and linear, boring, average, mediocre, just so I can see where this is going to be in 20 years, I'm not interested. But the Gordo that I have in my head interests me. And so, if there was, I like this question. If there was an actor to play Gordo, who would it be? If there was an actor to play Matt, who would it be? Eric, Chance, Sean, who would that actor be? And would I agree with it? Who's choosing the actor? You know what I'm saying? Do I get to choose my actor, or does the internet get to choose it? And then I'd love to see the comparison between the choices. So I love the question. I just don't care for Michael Keaton as Batman.
Well, do you prefer the Christian Bale Batman? Who's your favorite Batman? Because you never actually said.
Well, I didn't know it was a skill testing question, but if I'm going to be honest, it is probably Bale because he has a bit of grit in him, to me, Batman, when I was growing up as a kid, like in the late 70s, looking at the comic book, he was a bit of a darker character. He had a little bit of, he was half in the shadows and he was half out of the shadows. And so, Michael Keaton was like up on the stage with all the spotlights, not in the shadows. So
I dig it. Gordo, how about yourself?
Yeah, definitely go for Christian Bale for the exact same reasons that Sean likes his Bond the way he likes his Bond. It's like the same. It's not the story. The story isn't like happy and spotlights. The story's actually pretty sad, and the guy has a lot of trauma. And he should probably come do psychedelics with Gord on a retreat. And yeah, I don't know the question about playing you. Wow, that is a good question. I have no clue who that would be, but that's why it's such a good question. I think any of us, I don't know if you'd have an answer right away. What do you guys think?
I don't know. Eric, let's hit you first.
Are we going back to the Batman? I'm just going to rattle it.
All of them.
Yeah.
Hit them all.
Christian Bale, Daniel Craig, agreed. But I think part of why is what is your mission? Like, what are you going for? What are you wanting feedback on? And I think that's relevant to this conversation. It's like, shout out to Dr. Gino Colora, right, for talking about mission statement. He called it Constitution, but after hearing him discuss it a couple times and coming on my show, like, I was like, man, I need to do this. And it was arduous, which was why I didn't want to do it. But it started small, and until you put pen to paper, it's a different thing. You can conceptualize all these things, but what am I trying to get across? What do I want? What are my virtues? How do I want them to play out in my interactions with my family, with my team, with the efforts I do, professional or otherwise? What do I want my legacy to be? And I think these are all these things, right? And so whether you're an actor on stage, what do you want that role, that legacy to be? You can control what you do to an extent, right? You don't control how the movie gets pushed out, and that might be some of the audience, like literal and proverbial as well. There's a producer, there's a director, all these things. We are kind of the editor, producer, and directors of how we receive these inputs. But to go back to the actual prompt, I liked both of those actors, although I did grow up with Batman, and I grew up with like Michael Keaton Batman and this really visually stimulating Tim Burton work, right? Like, that was nostalgic, but for me, like, these heroes, when they're made in a sense that can be so real, like, I could believe those actors, and I could believe Batman in a pretty realistic sense could exist in this way. It's a different level of connection when you're thinking about what it takes, and you're thinking about what it took for those actors to get so jacked or so shredded. They had to believe it, and they made the audience believe it. Where you see so many people, they don't believe it. They're getting a paycheck, or maybe they're trying to get the little gold man. It just resonates on a different frequency. So that's why those actors for me.
I dig it. I like the idea of the frequencies and chasing little gold man. That's fantastic. Matt, you got any thoughts?
Well, I'm not the best guy for this. I couldn't tell you which Batman was who. I like grittier, if that makes sense, whichever one played that. I like the gritty Batman. I think a movie that I can relate to that it does, there's two movies. There's Tombstone and there's Wyatt Earp. And there's two different guys that play Doc Holliday. And I like the Val Kilmer Doc Holliday personally, because while he was witty and slick and Doc Holliday with all his little sayings and shoot 'em ups, he also really did a good job of portraying the sickness and the weak side, I thought, of who he was. And when I'm sitting here thinking about this, I think, I guess, the internet would already cast Walton Goggins as me, apparently, because that's what they all say. But I don't think I would cast that guy for me, but I don't know, maybe. I don't know what I would be anyway. But what I have noticed is that strength comes from acknowledging the shortcomings and the failures, and then handling it without emotion, but rather as just something to fix or maintain. And what I mean by that is when you have this baseline of performance, there's things you're not as good, with, and areas you're deficient, and there's areas that you're really good at. And if I spend a lot of time bringing those smaller areas up, I don't know, but what if I spent that amount of time on the stuff I'm really good, I could be even more exceptional. And so at best, I'll become mediocre here versus becoming extremely exceptional. However, I say that on one hand, on the other, I think you have to be aware of it. And instead of letting emotion cloud you, just tend to those things quietly that you can bring up and like, oh, this is a moment where I lose my temper, or I got upset about this before. Subconsciously, I'm thinking that doesn't serve you very well. So let that pass and hold your lip, and focus on excelling at the things you're doing really well at, and just be calm and quiet and let some of that dumber stuff that holds you back kind of pass by. I don't know if what I'm saying makes any sense, but that's my thoughts.
I'm tracking. And I think, so this is what I believe, at least, is that as you get better at certain things, all the ancillary skills that are around that start to come up as well. So it's not so much that you have like, a 10 in this particular skill and a 10 in this particular skill, but these are 2 and 4. Everything kind of builds on it itself. I mean, it becomes a general distribution curve, I think, on most things. Sean, you got any thoughts?
Well, what is interesting is the podcast that we're on right now is a good example of who's the stage manager, who's the lighting expert, who's the audio engineer, who's the planner, who's the talker, who's the thing, who's the that. And so, all of us podcast, or all of us create social media content. And so I know when I first started, my very first kick of the cat was bungee cording my phone to a frozen tree up on a winter single track on my fat tire bike, and thinking that I was going to try to be helpful. When I needed the most then was a freaking stage manager and a lighting expert and an audio engineer and all of the things, but I didn't have it. I didn't have a freaking clue. And so I just started trying to kick that ass the best way I knew how, by engaging with action. And here we are. Quite a while later, things are a bit better, but they're not as good as I want them to be, and that is the key. I don't think it really matters what your persona is. Whatever it is what it is, unless you're in the game of action. And then your persona is not anymore, because yesterday is different than today, which will be different than tomorrow. And if you're setting a fast enough pace, there'll be times when you don't even recognize yourself from the day before, if you're working hard. And so, what does working hard mean? It doesn't mean that you're going to put another inch on your biceps in 24 hours. It means maybe in 24 hours you can sit down with a pen and paper, rethink who you are, and then get on with a different persona, one that's going to serve you better rather than not.
All right. So on this lane, I think, we're talking, the personas are something, at least in my mind, that comes almost naturally to us. As a young child, you start looking for approval, right, from the people around you, especially as a very small child. And then you start looking at like, what gets me a good feeling? And you start to develop on that, and then you build out from there throughout your life. But so, I mean, it's a good thing to be able to put on a persona when you first step into a new job. You have no idea what you're doing, but you try to put on a persona like, hey, I'm here to be helpful, I'm here to learn, or you're put on a persona of, I know what I'm doing, or whatever persona you want to play on. So it can be helpful, but it can also be a hindrance. And I'm wondering if you guys have any specific times you can think of where you put on a show thinking like, yeah, I got this, and it went horribly south, or it did not come on to the outcome. I can see everybody's got an idea in their head already. Gordo, I'm going to come to you first. What do you got?
It's like kind of a lot of my life, I guess. Damn. Well, I've been married 3 times, so I think those were the biggest lessons of my life, to understand who I am as a person and how it's important that not only to be true, especially with your partner, be your true person, but subsequent to that is like, if you aren't being true to yourself, that's going to cause massive issues in the relationship, and the mask isn't going to work. And from 2 failed marriages, 3rd successful right now, like, I love her so much, I have a daughter with her and stuff, but if you aren't true to yourself and you put the persona on that you think someone else likes, it's not going to work out well. It's not going to work out well. I can give that as an example. Like, I was spouse-centered and work-centered, and I wasn't self-centered, and that I'm talking about core human being feelings, right, of worth and stuff like that. And that's when I was the most suicidal, because I wasn't taking care of myself and I wasn't being true to myself. I wasn't doing or acting in the persona who is Gordo. I was doing something else for someone else, thinking that's what they want, but in actuality, they probably just want the you. And if you're not meant to be with that person because of that, then you're not meant to be. So super heavy conversation. I was either going to be that or how I almost killed an entire squadron of JTF2 with an airdrop. So I went with the failures of marriage than killing a bunch of tier 1 guys.
I like it. There's quite a lot to be said about the understanding of your audience, right? We just talked about this. Eric, what do you got?
There's vulnerability in talking about both, for sure, and value in both. Man, I like the focus on, I like to try to call it self-focusedness, right? Because self-centered, selfish sounds so bad, but that's because of our inputs and what people have said before. But it starts with us. Everything starts with us. Like what we decide to do, how we think, how we play out, all this persona starts with us. And then we do pattern recognition, like Chance is talking about. Like we're trying to seek validation. We're trying to seek value. That is part of survival. That's, evolutionary and biological and all these things. But really what I think it comes back to is, the discussion of what is your goal? What are your virtues? Like what is the point of what you're doing? And that is why when Gordo sends the email, he's like, I got to be me. And whether you get a response, you knew when you sent that off, when you fired that off, if you got no response or you got an FU or you got a, hey man, you're right, I'm in. Either way, you had a win because you were you. And I suppose to share some of my examples, like when you're coming into police force or you're coming into, I don't know, I'm not a veteran, but I imagine when you come into such a bold, established culture, you try to fall into line, you try to conform, you have to some extent. However, I conformed a lot, and some of it to the detriment of like my inner persona or who I felt I was, where it took years of confidence or competence to allow my confidence to grow, to be like, well, no, I got to be me still. I'm not like, just don't put me in the box. And that was some of my biggest lessons and triumphs as a leader, was being creative. These things I was before I was a cop, because I didn't feel like I could be creative as a cop. But then when I was put in different specialty assignments and different challenges, when I was the most successful is when I was creative and when I was open and when I was collaborative and when I was asking, why not this, why not that? Let's bring the people in. Let's have more conversations, check the ego, rather than being like the new sergeant at a time when I was like, shoot, I got to have all the answers and I got to be, I got to give all the people the reason to trust me and just listen to me. Whereas like, it's not that at all. I mean, like some of the best conversations are with other people in the team. Be like, I literally have no idea what we should do. I have some general ideas. What do you got? And that's humble, it's fun, it's communicative, it's collaborative. So I think it's like recognizing, in my experience, like when you try and when you allow yourself to be you lean into the authenticity. When it pays you back with the feedback you're looking for according to your mission, then it's all gravy, right? But if we try to conform and we try to chase the analytics and the likes and things like that, thinking that's a form of validation, it might be, and it might get you viral, it might give you the flavor of the week, but if it's not true to you, then it's all for naught, and it's actually more damaging than nothing, than neutral.
I agree with that 100%. That's one of the reasons why I don't really look at the analytics here. I just want to produce an authentic conversation. Now, Gordo, I know you got to take off real quick here. I want to give you a chance. Any final thoughts on anything we've gone over so far?
Fantastic conversation. Some big brains in the room, and my brain is like firing. I wish I could stay because I enjoy this types of conversation. So I appreciate it as usual, gentlemen. I'm sure I'll see you guys again. Thank you. And I'll be touching base.
I will get you in the lineup shortly as it comes up. And I got a whole bunch of spots open. So we're going to get you back very shortly. Don't you worry. Have a great one, man. We'll carry on from here. Matt, you got any thoughts or anything at all from the conversation so far?
Yeah, I was thinking about Gordo, when he sent that email, he had to wait to get the feedback for a little while. Sometimes you ain't got to wait too long. I know when I was younger growing up, just the way I've always been my whole life is if I look up to somebody, I start to subconsciously pick up their traits. I'll just, even little mannerisms, whether it's the eyes, hand, whatever. like a chameleon, like a mimic. And there was a guy I worked for that was extremely successful in business, but he was single, and he could run the ladies off. I mean, not always, but single guy. And so I'd take that advice, not advice, but I'd pick up some of those things when I would talk to ladies. And I got the feedback right away. That shit didn't work. So yeah, I had to stop and think about that because I wasn't being me. And in my mind, somehow I had put this person on a pedestal, and he deserved to be on a pedestal. And I cannot thank him enough for the wonderful things in my life that have happened with regard to business. But when it's come to relationship, I would go back to what Gordo said. You shouldn't have to, when you shoot a rifle, you use your bone structure to hold things in place so you're not getting fatigue and shaking. A relationship to me should be that way. You lay it on the table, you show who you are, and if they don't stay, you're not getting atrophied because you're trying to hold some idea of what you think they want. And you can relax because it's you and it's them. And you know them and they know you. And you're not pretending at all. I like the movie Kelly's Heroes. I built my business around the movie Kelly's Heroes. This is an older movie, Clint Eastwood and Telly Savalas and Donald Sutherland. And there's three main characters there. Kelly is the guy leading this operation, and Big Joe, he's the one that's kind of apprehensive, but you got to have him because he's in charge. And then Oddball, he's in charge of the tanks, which you got to have tanks, but Oddball is Oddball. He's kind of crazy. And as I've built my business, I see that movie as a business model, and you could do a whole podcast on why. I'd love it. It'd be fun. But I find myself, because from an early age, I looked up to that movie. I find myself at times being those characters. And some people would say I'm oddball a lot more than I would, I would rather be Kelly, but it's just what happens. And in getting stuff done, you got to be Big Joe. But I've noticed that I pick those traits up, and actually it's helped me sometimes because I'll be having a bad day and I'll see a clip on Instagram of a scene where the chips are down and then the guys rally together to get through something. And I remember, oh yeah, I'm playing a game. This is a game, and I'm a character. I'm on the stage of life. So let's give them a performance. And nobody wants to watch a guy lay down and give up.
That would make for a pretty lame play, I would have to say. The main character just laid down like, yeah, cool, we're done. And I gotta say, I think everybody kind of wants to be Clint Eastwood, right? Like, if I could have anybody play me in my movie, Clint Eastwood would be a good choice. Sean, you got any thoughts on this?
Clint Eastwood from today?
Maybe not from today.
Dude, I know. That's what I was thinking. Which Clint Eastwood? Because he's had many personas, of course. And so which one do you identify? And that's a rhetorical question. Don't need an answer because he's been many things. And to Matt's point, Telly Savalas has had many roles as well. And generally speaking, he was to some degree typecast. He was slotted in more of a narrow kind of identity or persona. Though, with enough time and a different Hollywood, he could have played many things, of course. And so, and I think that's the case for all of us. What we're early influenced by, the Kelly's Heroes of the day, maybe we're influenced by that. And then how long are we influenced by it? Does it influence our entire life? Do we then want to take on an active role within our own movie of being a character or all of the characters? Are we shifting our characters within the day to the specific attributes or what they represent as a personality? And so if we're not switching anything, and if we're just us and we only have ourselves as the self-referential sort of object, then are we doing it as well as we could? My thought is this: if you're on a desert island with no Telly Savalas influence or any other influence, do you become the persona you're supposed to be? Or is your persona only created through the interaction of the Telly Savalases of the world?
Interesting. Eric, what do you got?
Yeah, I think that harkens kind of to what Matt's saying with the relationships, and we can think about everyone we interact with as relationships, even if it's people tuning into the podcast. That's a relationship. Like, I'm putting on a persona. I'm talking a little bit differently with your sharpened brains. I'm trying to prep myself before coming on. It's not the same as just catching up with a buddy. I'd like more buddies to take on some of this sometimes, but it's a different relationship, so that's fine. But it's that what Matt was saying with like maintaining a relationship and you relying on, you know, your skeletal structure, so it's not overly falsely inflated, right? So you can fall back on it, you can hold it, and it feels comfortable. You could be in that position for an hour if you had to without fatigue. And so I think an exercise I'm trying to do more is like, how do you make sure that you're showing up authentically, and how do you make sure that you're showing up in a way that resonates with you? Is imagine this relationship is not what it is a week from now, right? I use my profession as an easier one to look at. Like, imagine a week from now I get demoted or I get fired. Like, can I hold my head high doing things the way I was doing them, having conversations the way I was having them? Would I dramatically change in my next job? I'd like to think not, if it was a similar type of work engagement or similar type of responsibility. Not related to this, but I've been reading a lot of James Hollis lately, just trying to pick apart that kind of Jungian psychology. And the part I came across this morning was imagining when you're coming up on a choice, like imagining this choice or that choice, one of you, you're dying either way. Like, you make this choice or you don't make that choice, or you pick door A, door B, you're dying either way, but which one helps you grow? And I think that's what just keeps jumping out at me that I want to share in this conversation, because I think that that's ultimately what we're trying to get at. Like, how do we live truer? How do we live bigger? But not just like, you know, reckless abandon, but which one like resonates with us and what we're really trying to be about and put out in the world.
No, I just wrote down The Last Stand, and it clicked in my head. You see this in movies all the time too. It's like, if you run, you die. If you stand, you die. What are you going to do? Right? And everybody, at least in my mind and in my circle, everybody kind of wants to be the final stand. I'm going to friggin' pull my sword and I'm going to fight to the end. But for some people, I actually just talked to somebody else. They were like, I would just lay down and die. And I was like, wow, that's bold, I guess. But it's still a choice, and it's still part of the game. And it's like, who are you going to be to the end? Who, like, if you had just today, how would you live it? If you know, all these things, is what persona is it? Or is it a persona in the end? Or does it come back to your core being? I love this. Matt, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I was thinking when Eric was talking about, being who you are, and Sean was talking about being on a deserted island. I was thinking, well, how do you know, who are you? Your persona is, I mean, it's such a complex thing, right? So we pick up pieces all over the place, but the pieces we're picking up from somebody, they became that, and we pick it up from them. So who are we? What's our originality that we bring to the game? And in my experience, life is always a little sloppier when you really do stuff. And so I think to find out who that is, you would set a goal and you go for that goal. And when you take the sum of all those actions and things you had to do to get that goal done, there you have you. Because there's no way you can ride someone else's persona to get what you want. And what I mean is, be quiet and ask yourself the things that you want, the life that you perceive, not the life you think your mom would want for you, not the life you think your brother or sister would see you in, but with the whole world blacked out. What do you want? And what are you going to do to get it? And I think that's where you bloom. For instance, I'm looking for a house, and I one of the hobbies I do is I cruise the, lands for sale. mountain homes, big windows. I've seen a bunch of them, but I saw this one. And when I saw it, I stopped and I cruised the pictures. And I called up the agent, and it's like 9 hours from where I live. So I made an appointment. I drive out there, and I'm glad, maybe I told you guys about this before, but when I walked, I'm glad nobody was in front of me, because when I walked in the living room and I saw the 20-foot windows with the mountain view for as far as you could see, I mean, I choked up, and that was very personal. That wasn't Kelly's Heroes, Telly Savalas. That was Matt Barnett wants that. And nobody in my family understands that, but I do. And that was a year ago. And I'm currently in the process, the closing date's been set, and we're working through all the details that go with that. But if I look back over that story of the things I've had to do, the deadlines I've had to meet, the funding that had to get there, and the things I had to do for that, I don't know what it looks like on the outside, but that's whatever that is, whoever's observing that, if anybody, that's Matt.
I dig it. Sean, you got anything?
Yeah, I do like it. And I think what we're talking about here, and it's what bubbled into my mind when we were talking about, a number of things. It's who you are at your core, your essence, and how you are driven or not. And so we were talking about choices, and all I saw was myself in the matrix in the hallway with all of the doors on the left and right. And who you are in that moment is telling of your persona, and maybe not your persona per se, but who you are as a energetic essence, who you are as Neo without the body. And there'll be people in that hallway that will be scared to open a door. There will be people who will be scared to randomly open doors. They'll need to do the odds or the evens. There will be people who will tentatively grab a doorknob and just do a quick peek in and then close the door. There'll be people who will reach out real slow, test to see if the door's locked, and if it just feels wrong, they'll walk. There'll be people who reach out, open it and swing it wide open and poke their head around. But there'll be guys like me who'll not worry too much about the details of the moment, will randomly pick a door that feels right, and then I'm going to boot that thing right off the hinges and step in to the void and own it, whatever it is on the other side. The dragon, the devil, the god, the whatever, man, whatever. Frickin' bring it. And so that's who I am. And so if you don't know who you are at your core, that you're going to just stand in front of whatever and frickin' blast it. The rest is just a story that you tell in your head. You some of them are just lies that, well, when I'm in that moment, I'm going to ... see red. Yeah, cool. But is that really who you are? Because if you really are that, you don't have to lie to yourself in that moment, because you can look backwards over the body of work of all the frickin' doors that have been smashed in, or all the tiny little doors that have been eked open a little bit. Your body of work is doors off the hinges or doors unopened, to draw two extremes. And then where do you land on that spectrum? Are you cautious or are you careless? And these are the things that I find interesting about this idea of persona, because throughout your life, you'll throw on a pile of different masks, but at your core, you are what you are. And that's the thing that you've got to figure out.
That's a great point. I'm going to go back to my thought on The Last Stand here, because I think this is a useful analogy to it. To your point, Sean, it should be accumulation of work. And so I'm thinking of Last Stands that I've seen in movies or in television or books that I've read. And there are different types of last stands. One of them being you are chased, you're running away to a point that you get pinned into a corner, and then you have to fight your way out. Sometimes it is a moral choice. I don't know, I'm going to stand here. No one's going to cross this line. Sometimes it's in an advance moment where you are seeking a goal and have to come to a final stand. And I like this in that that last stand that you make should be accumulation of your choices. It should be accumulation of doors that you've opened, accumulation of masks that you've worn. And I'm digging this quite a bit. I'm going to go around again. Eric, you got any thoughts?
Not at this moment. Man, I was just thinking about Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid. I mean, last stand where you get chased and they're just done running.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt, you got anything?
They used a lot of dynamite in that movie. I like that. Yeah, I guess it's like clothes, right? I mean, hell, I got a big old leather duster. Doesn't come out too often, but when the weather's right, I got to wear it. I guess I've always thought about this kind of stuff like this. One time, I got a whole bunch of 50 cal ammo, right? And I'm kind of weird. And I thought, well, I need a belt-fed 50 caliber machine gun to shoot this. And then,
as one does,
I need a proper safe place to shoot it. So that's when I bought that ranch out in West Texas. And so some people, may just get one thing, but it doesn't fit. Kind of like the really nice car in front of the really junky house. It just, I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying it just seems like it doesn't fit. And so I think about this: the mind should match the body should match the clothes should match the function. And if all those things flow from the mind first out, it has an order that I can't explain, but it's the way things should be in my mind. And so, if you keep your mind squared away, your body should be squared away to the best of your ability. Obviously, there's all kinds of challenges there. And then your clothes should be a reflection of that. The way you carry yourself and act should also be a reflection of that. So in other words, it wouldn't make sense to have a disciplined mind, but then eat horrible food, but dress amazing, but act like a clown, if that makes any sense. And so the things that you put on daily become your persona. But if they're in that line, they're the correct persona for you.
Ooh, I like that. I also have a duster, and it does come out every once in a while when it's really rainy out, especially if it's like a heavy downpour. It's the right tool for the job. And I wrote down congruence. That for me, that's when it is a straight line, everything is congruent, and you're doing the right thing at the right time with the right stuff, and you have the right gear, and it just flows naturally. I dig it. Sean, got any thoughts?
Yeah, my thought is that might work for you now, but tomorrow when you meet a guy who tells you a different thing that then makes sense to you, that all of your decisions up till that point won't make sense. And so the influences of life, I mean, we can run our own little solo desert island life where everything is in congruence, the frequency is correct, the coconuts are right. You don't need a duster because it's hot, tropical, but you've got your favorite hat, and you don't leave your little shelter without your favorite hat. And so you feel good about it, but then another dude arrives on the island and tells you a different story, and all of a sudden that favorite hat just doesn't make any sense anymore. And that is the way of life. And so what we are talking about is the congruence of who we are right now, looking backwards and seeing if it all made sense, if it felt right. And we all know that the cognitive dissonance between thinking you're something but not being it, that freaking sucks, man. Like when, it doesn't matter what the weather is, if you throw on that leather sort of duster and step out and think that you're going to be the man, but you're a 95-pound weakling with a neck like a pencil. I mean, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. You know it and everyone else knows it. And why does everyone else know it? Because you know it, you feel it, and you aren't authentic in that moment. But you do the work. Like you throw on a few pounds, you increase the size of your neck, you put on that duster, you step out, you freaking jingle, jangle, jingle, own it. That's a whole different thing. But that takes a long time, man. You can't do that in 24 hours. You might be able to do it in 24 years. And so We we are a result of the body of our work for sure, and we do get comfortable with who we are if we put in enough work. But the work that we put in has to be carefully sort of discriminated against through the lens of other people. Like I've got friends who will put me in check where I think I'm doing a pretty good job, but they'll kind of step in and say, you know what, pick up the pace or dial the pace back or whatever, the advice of the day. And I relish that advice, man, because as much as I think that I'm doing pretty good at this life, I know that there's gaps that I need to improve on. And therefore, my persona is not just Sean's masks. I've got persona influence like today that will not dramatically change me, but will just polish up some of the little scuffs that need to be polished up today by listening to others around me.
I'm digging this. I got, it's a bit of old cowboy vernacular. It's kind of funny. And Matt, you reminded me of this, is that when there's, you can tell a lot about a guy from their boots, because there's either crap on them or there's crap in them, one or the other. And it's an old saying, and it doesn't reflect everybody, but it made me think about what you're saying, Sean, is that there has to be congruence, but there has to be polishing aspects. There has to be, like, a pearl can't be made on its own. There has to be sand, there has to be abrasion, there has to be something to create scratches and fill them in at the same time, right? Like when I'm sanding a piece of wood, I'm creating ruts in the wood, but then I'm sanding those ruts down a little bit more and a little bit more, a little bit more to kind of create that smooth finish. And I have a question on this, but at least in my mind, those ruts get sanded down from your circle, from the people that are around you, where you're like, okay, is when you first try it, right? Like when I walked out with a duster and a cowboy hat and boots and like big old belt buckle and all that stuff, when I first put that stuff on, it didn't feel right because I wasn't that person. Now when I do it, it feels right because I am that person. I'm out with the horses. I'm doing all the stuff. I have crap on my boots. Right? That's part of it. So I'm wondering, is there any point in times that you can recognize when your persona isn't serving you anymore? And then what do you do about it? Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I think to real quick on what you gentlemen were just saying, what I hear and what you're describing, whether it's Matt seeing the house, seeing the property, and having the visceral, like, physiological response that may have been hard to put into words, start to tear up, like, that is like intuition, like shaking you and like shining out this beacon of like, you need to be here. And then you put in the work to make you be here, right? You got that coming up. So congratulations. I think where what Sean is describing as well is this, it's the subconscious, right? You can wear the thing, you can try to put on the persona of like this badass, right? Or come out and you might even believe it, or you tell yourself, you might think you believe it, but you really don't, right? You know. And that's where it's like, for some people, you fake it till you make it. And there is a potential road there where you're faking it, like you're not the gym rat, but you go to the gym enough and you expend enough calories, you consume enough calories, and you become the gym rat. Like now you are, right? You weren't before, now you are. And so that's where my head went. Man, when you're talking about shedding personas, I think that it is valid, and I think it's hard, but in order to grow, we can't keep being everything. We can't keep doing everything. I was having this conversation recently where it's like, I feel like I was ready to take on different roles because I quote unquote proved it. But mostly who I had to prove it to was myself, like to be canine and do like the physical, like hands-on in the field work and going in the swamps and catching felons. Like I'm happy I had that experience, and I'm proud of myself for doing it, and I learned a lot, but I wasn't going to be that guy forever. Like I had to let it go. But still, you know, as I work at a desk as an administrator, I still grapple with this, like, man, I kind of want to still know I can do it, or maybe do the fellas know I can do it? well, it kind of doesn't matter to the fellas or whatever. It matters to me, right? And so at a certain point, I have to recognize like that's not your job anymore, man. Like, and that's like, to go out there and try to be that all the time. Like, you're gonna fail your people because that's literally not your job. But I think that's me having that internal monologue more than anyone else is. I don't think anyone else is talking about what the commander's thinking about or what he thinks he needs to devote his time towards. They just know what their sphere, what their circle, their inputs are like, and how am I making that better or making it worse. But hopefully that answered your question a little bit about like leaving things behind. You can't be everything all the time.
I dig it. Absolutely. Matt, got any thoughts?
Man's got to know his limitations. I think Clint Eastwood said that. Yeah. Chance, you said something about how do you find it, or you were talking about sandpaper, sanding down things. I think when you set a goal, and we've all kind of been on the same page here, everybody here is action oriented. And for those listening, if you want to know who you are, if you want to get down to it, you got to do some carving, some fluff. Cause like Sean said, if you put the duster on and you got the pencil neck and you're 95 pounds, you're really pretending. But if you put the work in 24 years, you can be that guy. So I think the way you do that is you set a goal, and you have to be quiet, not a goal that your mom wants for you, or not a goal that, even your heroes you may think want for you. Because the truth is, people think about themselves. You need to think about what you want, picture it, and then set out on it. And immediately the cheese grater is going to show up and start carving away at you. You're going to start feeling the pain of the sanding, but that's your compass. If the direction that you're going is still towards your goal, then it's a forming, because a lot of people picture themselves waking up in the morning, having a Lamborghini outside and a helicopter and all this stuff. But if you look at how they conduct their daily life, that's never going to fit that waveform of life over there, the way that, that it is. You have to become that. I think that stuff comes to you when you change yourself. It starts to show up. So I've set goals before that certainly at the time of setting them, I couldn't have it. I ended up getting those goals, maybe not always the way I thought they were going to come. But once I got there, a little dessert, after all the fanfare is over, like, yeah, I accomplished it, which by the way, it's never like that. It's just another day. And then you're moving on to the next one. But sometimes when you have a cup of coffee and you're sitting there thinking, you realize, wow, I've gotten a bonus. Not only did I reach the goal I wanted, but I became the person it required to get that goal. And that's truly the sweet, quiet little jewel of it all.
Ooh, man, I like that. Now, I know, Eric, you got to run real quick here, so I want to make sure you have an opportunity. Do you have any final thoughts before we shut her down for you?
I think what I'll wrap with, as far as my involvement, will be, the discussion of that, that sanding down, right? It makes me think of Bruce Lee, right? You retain what's useful, discard what's not, and continuing to evolve. And so, with permission, I think that there's a lot of us, as Matt pointed out, like no one here is listening. I'd venture to guess, like no one here is listening that's not trying to be more, be better, be faster, be stronger, be sharper. They're just not dedicating the time and attention to these types of conversations. They're pretty high drive conversations. But it's also giving your permission to not do it all, and not like you can't drive hard and fast in all different directions. Like you literally can't. You won't go anywhere. You'll have the brake on or the e-brake engaged, and you'll be revving. And what are you doing? But just kind of burning your engine out. And so I think that is a hard thing to even speak out right now, because that's what I'm working on. I listen to and I talk to fellas like yourself that are doing so much and having these high level conversations and putting a lot of good out there and creating a lot of good. And sometimes in my own reflection, I'm like, man, is it ever enough? Like what I'm doing. So it is to say, like, you got to know why you're doing it. And again, some of the external input can be helpful, but it can't be about that. You gotta do it for you, and you gotta receive the validation internally from yourself.
I dig that a lot, and I really appreciate you being on here. I'm going to send you some dates and make sure you get back on soon again, because it's been too long from Commander Tung. I love it.
Eric.
It has been too long,
Thanks, gents.
but I will say this, that anything that Eric puts out, I see on the regular basis, because I've been tracking him since we first met Eric, and I know that sometimes social media seems a little bit thankless, or a little bit, like, is anyone even picking up what I'm putting down? And I know that at times you felt that, we felt that, but I appreciate your consistency of effort. You may be feeling that you're not getting enough love, but you're definitely getting maximum love for me on the regular, just because you're in the game on the regular. It's easy to give up on this stuff for sure, but you haven't, Eric, and that says a lot about your character. That says a lot about your persona. So keep on keeping on.
No, thanks, James. And that's front of mind too, because there's a dude, and I'll make sure I connect you guys offline. He's newer in this social space, podcast, speaking, right, and he's solid, right? Solid lessons, but part of him, because he's high drive, and he's like, man, is it enough? And I got a shout out to our mutual friend Mark Bouchard, who's like, man, if you rewind back to when you started or before you started, and think about what you've been able to do, the kind of feedback, the kind of like genuine interactions you've had, like, would you have expected that? And honestly, for me personally, I was like, no. And so it's someone like, you gotta know your circles, right? And those around us keep us sharper, but they also keep us honest, and they keep us true and grounded and rooted. And so shout out to Mark, because he's like, dude, like, similar to you guys, when you know what you're doing and what it's about, it wasn't about that thing, right? And it wasn't about traction. Traction, the analytics go up and down, but truly, when you look at what it is that you're doing, if you can find that, and generally, I think you can, when you're doing it with the right intentions and the right values, it's there. You just gotta maybe be still, right? As Matt was saying earlier.
Being still is crucial. I actually had this image in my head before I let you go here. I had this image in my head of there's a picture going on around online of a sculptor like chipping away at the marble around him in and of itself. But I had this image within it, is that if you're wiggling around and you're using a chisel on yourself, you're probably not going to end up in a very good situation. So to be able to be still, to be able to chip away at those things and take off, as you said, Bruce Lee said, discard what's not useful, right? You got to be able to take that off. And I think that's part of the persona. As the mask goes on, you have to kind of shape it and mold it and shift it as time goes on, as you learn things. But Eric, again, thank you for joining us. I'm going to get you on real soon.
Appreciate you guys. Good to see you.
Peace. Sean, any thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. If we were talking about clay and shaping it, then certainly, this is my opinion. I just wrote it in the book that I'm writing right now. I feel that, if we've got clay in front of us, we are the tool that shapes it. The world is the pressure that lets the pieces fall off. And so, like, the world is shaping the clay, and we're shaping the clay. And how much you want to let the world shape it, how much you as the tool want to shape it, that's up to you. But you got to understand the relationship, that it's certainly two variables that are working together simultaneously to create that masterpiece or not. Something that Matt had said about being out on the left side of Texas, or the west side of Texas, it raised something in my mind that when we lived in Texas for a couple of years in Sugarland, my wife was down there doing some engineering on behalf of Fleur Daniel. I was doing a lot of ultra endurance racing in Texas at the time, and I've been out to Terlingua to race in some ultra endurance races out there. And there's something about the west side of Texas. There's a feeling. I mean, there's a vista, And there's things, of course, but there's a feeling. There's a frontier feeling. There's a spirit out on the west side of Texas that is unique to the west side of Texas. And I think that is kind of a critical part of this conversation, that our persona is defined by the world around us, of course, like it will shape us. Terlingua shaped me. It's still in my mind. It's still in my soul. I still feel it. I still smell it. I can still hear it. These things shape us. The world shapes us. If we let it, if we pay attention to it, if we actually understand what is freaking going on the daily. And so Terlingua did that for me. But then, like, what do I do with those feelings? Well, as the tool, I'm going to shape those. I'm going to carve off things that aren't serving me well from that feeling. Or I'm going to hang on to things that aren't serving me well from that feeling. All of this is mine to play with. The world is mine. My internal world is mine. And if you're not playing with the external and the internal aspects of the Terlingua moments, you're missing the boat. Your persona is probably handed to you as a one-dimensional mask that you're wearing for the rest of your life, because the other masks that you should have been gaining access to, they're called driving to Terlingua and standing in the middle of a desert and feeling it. And I just don't think enough people do that.
Agreed. Matt, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, well, you had me at Terlingua. You hit the nail on the head. There's definitely a feel out there, and we don't get a choice. We're all on the stage of life playing a part. It's either going to be a lame part or a great part. And I think everybody has the potential to be a great part. But I think a lot of people are told what they're going to be versus going and having that quiet time and listening, because I think each person uniquely was designed with some great sauce inside of them that's got to get out. But they never make the world quiet enough so they can hear it. They're always listening and taking that as a force to force them, when, like you said, Sean, you're the tool and the world is your oyster. In fact, I had a guy reach out to me recently. I get a lot of people reaching out to me asking about careers in explosives. And one gentleman asked, he said, I assume that you were ex-military and that's how you got in this, or, how did you do it in the civilian world? And I told him, I said, I never was, I just found a way in the civilian world working with explosives. And he said, so I can do this. And I said, yeah, absolutely. You can do this. I said, there's an avenue for anything. I said, but you can't come at me and ask me how to dream for you. I said, you have to tell me what exactly you want to do. And I said, you need to spend some quiet time thinking and picturing, what do you want your life to look like with energetics? What do you want to be doing with them? I said, then the way will appear, because then you know the questions to ask, because there's a lot of different licenses to get with explosives and they're all for different activities. So I got to know what you want to do with it. And when I'm in West Texas or even Southern New Mexico, I feel like that whole area of the country is that sweet moment that's a calm before the storm, but it's frozen in a place and time. In other words, in a movie like a zombie movie, before the event happens, you're picking, as a viewer, you're picking the little clues up, but everything's still normal for now in the movie. That part of our country, to me, when I go there, I feel completely, I don't know how to explain this, but connected to the rocks. I mean, I feel home. And I love the farm that I live on. I love this area. I really do. But when I go there, it's me, And when I go there and I spend time living in those sunsets, and I mean, you live out there, you live in the sunset for about a 20-minute period. The sky is just painting every day and changing. Every 5 minutes is something different. And I am inundated with these feelings about what is my life. And I know that when I go back home, I'm extremely busy. But when I get out there, the phone doesn't work quite as well. And I like that. That's my goal. I want to get there. I want to be in that spot that is kind of a forgotten place of the country where time just feels old. That is a great place for creation to come up in my mind. It's a very fertile field for me to create out there. And so I am working on building a life that is putting me more in line with that, to spend more time there. I'll always be coming back here. Hell, I'll probably have 4 or 5 houses one day all over the place, but I want to spend a lot of time there because I feel like a plant that has all of its nutrients and water met in that place, because I think that's where I'm quiet enough to get to know me. And I like this guy, and that's where I get to listen to him.
I dig that a lot. I feel the same way. Southern Alberta, there's certain spots like around my family's ranch that I can sit. I go hunting there all the time, but you get to be quiet, and it time doesn't feel the same when you're there. There's just this yeah, it's a vibe. It is really awesome. I know the feeling as you described it. I was like, yep. I know exactly the spot too where I can picture myself sitting there. Sean, you got any thoughts?
So, building that out to some degree, if you've tasted it once, now what? Like, are you satisfied with once? Because I wasn't. So I started traveling the world looking for more terlinguas, more magic spots, standing in Peru, standing in this, standing in that, looking at this, touching that, feeling this, talking to him. All the things. Like, that's what I've done. Once you taste it once, then what? Like, do you just stick with the one thing and figure out that you've got it all figured out? Because that's not what I thought. I tasted it once and that wasn't enough for me. And so I have pursued. And I've stood in spots that other people just wouldn't even consider going to, because that is the spot that made me connect with what I needed to connect to. And like we were talking earlier at the start of the conversation about how we kind of don't know how to do these things that well, how we don't really know how to run our personas maybe as good as we could, or what even is a freaking persona. But I do know this, what we were talking about at the start was none of us have got it figured out. I literally don't know what I'll do tomorrow. I literally don't know, nor do I care, because I'll figure it out, because I've figured it out all my life. And I have faith in the fact that when I show up tomorrow, whatever I feel, I'll execute against. And so that has been my life, really. I don't have a script or a plot or a movie sort of goal in mind for who I am as the lead character as the credits roll. What I do have is every day I wake up and I pick up a new script and I haven't even read it. And I just start doing it without like knowing what the words are on the script. Like every day's a movie to me. And I'm not trying to be a hero. I'm not trying to be an action hero. I'm not trying to be like the leading man. I'm just trying to freaking kick that ass today, because this is what I got. And tomorrow, I don't have a freaking clue. I don't know how to podcast. I don't know how to talk into a microphone. I don't know how to do social media. I don't know how to do a lot of things, but I do know when I'm doing it, it gets what it gets, and it gets me places. And so getting places by not knowing how to do it, that's been the script of my life. And again, for anyone out there who needs to hear it, if you think that you don't have your act together, every morning I wake up, I think the same thing. I don't have a script. I just freaking kick that ass and hope it all plays out. If we are, Hogan's Heroes or The Dirty Dozen or, all of these various old time movies, I've played all the characters in all the old movies. I've been oddball. I've been all of it. And some work well for me and some don't. And then several years later, the thing that didn't work does. And I think that's the game, man. The game of life is to not lock into your character as to, well, I am oddball this year and I'll always be oddball. I don't see it that way, because literally the script is being rewritten every time I wake up the next day.
Sean's in a constant state of improv. I like it. So I have a question on this then, because you have the benefit of experience. Let's put it that way. You're a bit older than I think Matt and I. But if you could go back and perhaps change the personas you were using, the masks you were using in the moments that went well sometimes or went poorly others, would you? Would you take that opportunity to switch it out, or would you let it play out the way it was played? Sean, what do you think?
Well, it's a great question. So, the simple answer is this. I wouldn't change a freaking thing, because then I wouldn't be who I am right now. However, I have to add a rider to that, or I have to add a cautionary note to that. Like when I was young, I was a freaking handful, man. I mean, like a handful, too much. And I pushed my pace in ways that were uncomfortable for a number of people. And when they were uncomfortable, it made me comfortable. And so I probably leaned in a little bit too much to young, sort of push the pace, Sean. I probably should have dialed it back a little bit when I was younger. And I think that it's not that I would have made more friends or I would have made more enemies or whatever. It's not about that. I just feel like if I could have done it better when I was younger, then there'd be more people set up for success right now that I didn't set up for success in a way that I now understand how to do. And so it's just, looking backwards over time, the woulda, shoulda, couldas, they're just academic, intellectual exercises, thought processes that, I should have done that, but I didn't. I can't change any of that right now. But chance, if I was to change the past, then I wouldn't be who I am. And I kind of dig who I am right now. So there's that.
So, Matt, I want to get your opinion on this as well. I'm going to throw in a little rider here, but if we're all trying to be better as well every day, then if we change the past, we might end up as a better version of ourselves now. So, another little rider to think about. Matt, what are you thinking?
Well, that goes on forever. I mean, woulda, shoulda, coulda. You could always think back and think, well, if I did this, then this would have turned out that way. But we didn't. We did what we did. And so I believe it's very prudent to remember the past, to know the story of the scars that you wear. But it's also prudent to forge ahead with what you learned, because that's the gift you gave yourself by making those mistakes. And it's not something to beat yourself up over. What do they say? In 100 years, we'll all be forgot. I mean, some people take a little longer than that. But I wouldn't take it too serious. Everything's a balance, though, riding a line, right? I like what Sean said about doing it over and over again, like that love of the West, and you see it and then you grow again. What if somebody gets to the end of their life and they experience that once, and then they think, I could have been doing this my whole life. I could have gone and explored Africa and Europe and Australia, but I didn't. And now I'm, 75 years old or whatever. The time that you have left, you're going to rob it from yourself if all you do is think on regret. However, you can take that and run with it. It's like if you find yourself in a great relationship, let's say towards the end of your life, you could cry over not meeting that person earlier or not making decisions that would have led you to that earlier. But then you're robbing yourself of the precious years that you do have. So maintaining that positive attitude is important. And I have a little secret, a little trick that I use, and it comes from having that place out in West Texas. And Sean, what you said resonates with me, because I don't want to do it one time. Like I said, I want houses in multiple places, but I like to have the home base. I like a place like I'm in my library right now. This is my base for here. And this is where I go to find my sense of adventure. And that's, to me, that's the little trick. Because if I can see what I'm doing as an adventure, like an adventure movie, and I'm a character in it, it makes it fun. And if it on the whole is fun, that means I can go through really stressful times, a lot of pain, failure. I can go through all these things, but I remember that's part of the adventure, a real adventure, not an adventure with safety bars and safety nets and people standing there monitoring how many people get on the ride, but a true adventure that if people would shut up long enough, they would really enjoy watching because it's a good show, but I get a front row seat. So if I have that base, that this library or that ranch to go back to find myself, then guess what ends up happening? I do it again, and I do it again, and I do it again. But I've always got my place. I always told people, I said, hey, Indiana Jones had a house. I mean, he did. I saw an episode, one of the movies, they ransacked his house, and looked all through. So he had a home, but he was Indiana Jones. He was always out fighting the Nazis and traveling all over the world. And I've sort of become my heroes, which were Indiana Jones and Han Solo. They weren't in the military, but they worked with the military, and they were always on the good guy side having an adventure. And lo and behold, I look around at 44 and there's a lot of similarities to that. So I've worn a few of those personas to get here, and location has mattered, but it's all been a great adventure looking within myself and finding out who is this guy and what's the next move. That's the unknown part that keeps it exciting. What's next?
I like that. And both of those characters are scoundrels. And I love that word for it. But like it's from Star Wars, especially scoundrels. Yeah, you like scoundrels, don't you? Like that's that little piece of rogue, not quite institutionalized, right? You're not part of a program. You're just kind of on your own. You're just, caution to the wind. Sean, you got any thoughts?
Yeah, I do. Because, one of the interesting things about being a scoundrel is, generally speaking, it denotes something about you that is quite different from the general population. But scoundrel is like, it's got a touch of an edge, but it's a nice edge. But a scoundrel can actually get up to some, can cause some trouble, some systemic trouble, often from a scoundrel. And so, you start off as a good scoundrel, but then along the way, you realize that, as Han Solo, you've kind of been doing it wrong to some degree. But that's what you got to do as in your own movie as the lead scoundrel, is you're going to do it right and you're going to do it wrong. And that's a fact. Sometimes you saunter into a place and you own it, and then next thing you know, you're in a freaking carbonium block or whatever for a little while. And so that can happen in social media, by the way, as well. So I do appreciate the idea that Matt, to some degree, leans on these almost avatar-like characters that represent, to some degree, probably big, bold attributes that he can identify with. Han Solo, as an example, willing to take a bit of a risk, but he's doing it for the right reasons. He's out there kicking ass, but it's on behalf of the universe. He's going to take some chances, but not too many chances that too many people die. And so that is what a scoundrel does, man. Like, you kind of bend the rules a little bit. And bending the rules as a scoundrel isn't always socially acceptable if it is deemed as, well, now you're just, you're a bad scoundrel. You're a bank robber scoundrel. You're the scoundrel that is like a problem in the town. And so, but you can be a scoundrel and be like an attribute to the town, an attribute to the movie. And so I do like the idea of scoundrels and what they bring to the table, because I think more often than not, a scoundrel to me denotes someone with character. And I love character in a person, man. So I dig the Han Solo idea.
So this has just clicked in my head, and I think that this is the key to it, is that there's lawlessness to it. Like, you're stepping outside of what is allowed, what is legal, what is something. So like being a rogue, being a rebel, being against the grain, you're going to be doing things that are not normally done that way particularly. But the key to it, like you said, Sean, is, are you Robin Hood, or are you like just a thief? Are you giving back to the community with anything that you've taken, or are you just taking stuff for your own personal aggrandizement, for your own personal entertainment? And I think this is part of that question, is that if you want to wear the mask, if you want to put that persona on of the rogue, of the, I can't think of another word for it, but of that rebel, you know, you want to be the good kind, but sometimes you realize you're not, or sometimes you realize that this whole thing has been a mask to begin with. And I just, if
so Chance, you've got a good grip on the lore of Star Wars.
yes,
And so, you know, as far as I recall, correct me if I'm wrong, but Han Solo, way back in the day when he kicked off, he was a rogue, or he was a scoundrel, but he was actually like self-serving. Like he was all about stealing the things and transporting the things and doing the things. And it was all about, you know, thickening up his wallet, putting away some galactic credits in the galactic bank. And so that's how he started off. He was a scoundrel with a good heart, but let's make no bones about it, he was all about the self-serving. But somewhere along the way, he met someone and talked to someone and bumped into someone, and then all of a sudden he started seeing the writing on the wall, and that was, it ain't just about me. And that took him a while. It took him a while, and to some degree kind of fought it a little bit. But when you see it, then what? And that's kind of what I think Han Solo did. You know, started off as a self-serving scoundrel and got shown the way. Presto changeo.
not just shown the way. And it's an interesting point that you bring up, is that at near the end of the episode 4, the first movie there, he gets called out by Luke right at the end. Right before they actually leave on the final battle of Yavin 4 and all that stuff. And yes, I'm a total nerd for Star Wars, and I do need to correct the fact that it's called carbonite. He was encased in a block of carbonite. But, yeah. But to your point, he had someone in his group all of a sudden that held him to account, that said, hey, no, it must be easy to just run away with all this money, right? And you made him think about it, because prior to that, in any of the lore of it, he never really had anybody else. It was always just Chewie and him. And they would go back and forth, and they had their hijinks, and they did all their stuff. And yes, it was very self-serving. They were just making money. It was all about them to do the things. But it took somebody that he respected and trusted to say, hey, man, what you're doing isn't cool. You need to either get on board or not. Pick a side. And I think that's part of it, because having a good community, having people around you that really hold you to account in the right way will allow you to become that person that you think you are, that mask portrays. Matt, you got any thoughts on this?
Yeah. I can see what you mean. And actually, it's, to be honest, I mean, it's something that I have struggled with. I'm just thinking of all the people that, you know, as you go through life, you rub people the wrong way sometimes. I don't think me, and more in that I want more money. I want more money to do more things, to do more, to create more. And actually today it's the first of the month, and I'll do the finances, and I always pay myself for the last month. So I go through and I figure out how much can I give me, Matt Barnett, for the work done last month. And I realize I set out on some very selfish goals long time ago. I 100% set up Kelly's Heroes, robbing a bank legally under the confusion of war, in so many words. But I was doing it because it's an adventure, and why not? Let's create this business. Let's use this person and legally. Let's do it legally, but let's rob the bank. Let's make money. Well, why? And you get caught up in the game of it and you don't ask the why until you're already in the throes of it. And as I was saying, I was paying myself and I'm going over the finances, and I realized that, thank God, but in this commotion of this adventure, a lot of my money goes to other people, because I have created a little venture, a little team, if you will, and we're breaking through enemy lines, but I needed people. Well, because I said, hey, follow me and we're going to go on this adventure, people have joined on board, and I'm supporting in a small way. I'm supporting families. I'm supporting employees. I've got services around the community. There's electricians out there right now wiring things up. My community is getting something from me because I went on this adventure. So it wasn't like 100% of just robbing a bank and walking away, because I'm doing it every day. But I do struggle with the question of what more can I do? And, I have 4 children and I spend time with them, and I'm not just bragging when I say my kids are pretty well put together. I'm pretty sure you could throw all 4 of them on an island and I'm not worried about them. Like, they're going to be fine. So I think, in a way, there's another good thing that I inadvertently have had a part in. My wife plays much bigger role, and all kudos to her. But those kids are a spinoff of that. That's something good. But I would like to be used for something higher. I've reached out to some of the child trafficking organizations that are anti-child trafficking and said, hey, I've got this facility and it's by the border, and if there's a way to use this, let's use it. And I'm not looking at that with a mindset of dollars on it. So I have felt that change of being that scoundrel, but with a good heart, but definitely a scoundrel of let's get the gold. But then as you mature and the adventure continues, you start to ask yourself, to what point? And really and truly, there's got to be more to this than just self-serving. And so where can I best serve? And that's something that I'm definitely open to, and, just always looking for.
I dig it. I really like that. And it took seeking the gold for its own end, right? I was thinking Lord of the Rings, they're going to retake, The Hobbit, they're going to go steal the dragon's gold, right? That's what they want. But then you got to ask, well, why? What is it for? I love this. Sean, what do you got?
Well, Smaug, as the dragon within the Hobbit, represented many things. He represented greed, he represented etc. And so then when you inject yourself into that equation as the little Hobbit, what's it all about? Are you hunting the gold? Are you hunting the adventure? Are you just hunting because your other friends are hunting? And so, there's many ways to skin that dragon for sure. I do find this interesting, though, in respect to Matt. If he is Han Solo and, he's now got not just Chewbacca, but he's got, a team wrapped around him to some degree. At what point in your journey, Matt, did you witness a Yoda that demonstrated some of the Force to you? Because I feel that, like you can run your own little program. We can all run our own little programs and we can craft the movie of the year. But at the end of the day, I feel like the movie magic is like actually seeing some magic. And I've seen some magic in my life from some characters who I would consider kind of Yoda-ish. And that has like fueled my own script. It has made me, if I was in Matt's shoes and I was Han Solo, then at some point in my movie script life, like I saw the Force, and then I wanted to be more than just a scoundrel. And so, question to you, Matt, how many Yodas have you hung out and played with the Force with?
Well, it's ongoing. And the latest and greatest, I guess, is the realization that pretty much the whole world wants to be heard, and very few people listen. And I've been experimenting with this, that whenever you have a conversation with somebody one-on-one, one of my faults is, and I think we all do this to some degree, is we're thinking of what we're going to say next, and we're thinking of how we're going to respond. And so we're very methodical and calculating on the conversation. But a lot of people, most people, I think all of us to some degree, we don't need the answers. We need somebody that cares. We need somebody that's actually listening. And I learned this from my exchange student. I had an exchange student from Switzerland, and she was very quiet. He would take her skiing. We would take her swimming at the creek, and I couldn't tell if she was ever having a good time or not. She's definitely one of the Yodas. And the only, reaction I got out of her once is we saw an alligator at the creek, and she said, "I will never get back in that water again." I was like, "Oh, you've been swimming them with the whole summer. Trust me, they don't care." But one time we were walking through the desert, talking and talking and talking. And I said, "I sure do talk a lot." I said, "What are your thoughts?" And she said, "Well, I'm listening to you." She said, "And I'm listening what you're saying, but then you move on. And I don't have time to formulate my thoughts on that. And then you're talking about something else. So I start listening to that." And I thought, wow, nobody does that. And if you look around in the world, we're all a bunch of children, and we want to express things. We want to say things, but there's no grown-ups to listen. And so I've started to pay attention to my friends that get stressed out, and they come at me and add more stress on me. And I've been thinking about the things I've learned from Stoic teachings. And it's been a great opportunity to say, hey, maybe I don't know some grand thing I can do to defeat the empire today, but I can start by listening, and start by being empathetic, and start by saying, whatever burden you're putting on me, I'm okay with that. Like, I can handle that, and not reacting, not being emotionally so sensitive that I would raise my voice when somebody's having a bad day and expressing themselves. Then it's just two frogs chirping at each other. And so if no one's going to stand up and be the ears, start by being there and just listen.
I love the fact that one of your Yodas is younger than you. Most people think, when they think of I think when most people would think of Yoda, they think of the older, wiser, mentor figure. But if you really look at each little lessons that we learn, there's Yodas kind of all over the place, which is what I really dig that a lot. Now we are just about 2 hours right now, and I just want to say thanks, Matt. You stayed in through the whole thing, and I love it. Really appreciate the conversation. We have hit all kinds of things, but fantastic, both Sean and Matt. Thank you guys so much. Let's get some final thoughts across the board on anything that we've gone over today, which is quite a bit. Matt, you got anything still bubbling in the back of your brain?
Well, the whole topic was persona, and I always get an education when I come on here, and it's a great opportunity to, sit down and reflect and not have to be in action all the time. And it's very healthy. And I don't do it enough because, Sean brings up ways of thinking that, I didn't even think of before. So my thoughts on the persona are: set goals, be honest with yourself and with others, and let the experience shape you. And if you set out on a worthy goal and you're honest about who you are with yourself and with others, therein lies the adventure. And the best possible outcome that can be is going to be because you chose that. And it may be scary, but go anyway.
I dig it. Sean, any final thoughts?
Yeah. One of the interesting things about Matt, I've found in the number of appearances that he's been on the podcast, is he thinks in a way that intrigues me, that fascinates me, that pleases me, that makes me want to listen to him rather than talk. And so we've got a number of guests like that. Interesting minds that think in interesting ways that make me think differently as well. And so my mind is a result of trying to hang out with minds like Matt. And so that would be my advice to anyone is if you're looking to better understand your persona, saddle up next to a person who's got a fascinating mind that may help you understand how you work just a little bit better.
That's a great point. And to your point, Matt, I know I spent most of my life just desiring to be heard. That was one of the big ones for me. It was just I wanted to be heard. So I talked a lot. And one of the things that the collective has taught me, and Sean especially, is that the speaking part, the being heard part, comes after you listen. And that is once you figure out how to just shut up and listen, the people around you will either keep talking and you'll probably move on, or they will stop talking and recognize that you're listening and then want to hear your opinion. And so that process of being able to stop and listen actively, it's such a great tool to have in your toolbox, but it also helps shape the persona that you apply to life. Is that you have to be able to stop and listen. You have to be able to reflect. You got to be able to reshape that persona, put it back on your face, and carry on. And as long as that persona is you, I think it's super helpful. Other than that, that's all I got. So as we all continue to learn, build, and grow, we'll see y'all next time. Chimo. Thanks everybody for watching and being part of the collective. If this has sparked any thoughts or resonated with you, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us grow and keeps the conversation going. We'll see y'all next time.